organized development days organized by the ministry and the school, and to be honest, they were just a day to not be at school. The things that were discussed were not really applicable. They didn't come with much that I could use. So it's really commendable that you have taken upon yourself to do things like this that will help the teachers. But I'm actually wondering, apart from the interview responses, what were the other indicators that you used to determine that the intervention really made an impact on the teacher's performance?
The checklist that was used during the observation of the classes, and the things each time you go to the class and you tick off and then you tally.
Observe them in class.
Right.
And good afternoon. First, a comment. Well done. I'm glad your throat provided you with the necessary assistance today. Clinical observation. You were able to see the teacher going through the lesson before the intervention and then after the intervention. And what about the lesson plans?
The lesson plans. As I said before, well, I might not have mentioned it, but initially, when I took over and now started to observe the teachers, I realized that teachers were using the one-size-fits-all. So you take up a lesson plan and you have the objectives, you have the material, and you have the procedure, and you have the assessment. And it was just one thing, no differentiation. And so after the intervention, or during the intervention, it started to change. And I tell you something, I studied it, and I realized that even teachers were not a part of the intervention. There's a change, because of course, I have opened it up because it's become a part of my SIP because of the National Education District. Yes, sir.
Alright, listening to your presentation, I was happy that your voice held up and you could have completed. So I commend you for that. I sat down as I was listening through. I had an experience at work this week as it relates to your topic. I have 4 students. I teach grade 6. So I have 4 students, and from September, from I got them in September, I realized that these 4 students were having challenges. And it doesn't matter how I differentiated the instructions or how good of a teacher you consider yourself to be, these 4 students, a girl and 3 boys, they were just not able to apply themselves. It doesn't matter whatever the activities or whatever it is that you do. And a team from the National Disabilities something came, and they have been there from, they did it last week and they're coming back this week. And to my well, not to my surprise, but those 4 students from my class were identified as having learning challenges. So it doesn't matter how much I differentiated the instructions, they just have a challenge. So what I believe that should happen, these students are at a disadvantage, and I blame both administrators as well as the ministry. These students should not have been allowed to pass through the system from grade 1 all the way up. And if I go back to all these teachers from even basic schools, call it that, they could tell me that those 4 students were having those difficulties from them. So I think these students are, sometimes we blame teachers for the wrong reason. I'm not saying you know, based on the students that we get, but when you look at it, what do you call them now? We call them, well, School of Special Education, they're called now. They are not taking them until they're 9. That's too late. 9, 10, that is way, way too late. And if I had it within me, those 4 students could never be sitting in front of me, because I cannot help them, I'm telling you that. Because I am not specially trained to deal with those students. And if you're coming here to judge me based on those 4 students, you understand, it's somewhat not fair to the teacher as well as to the students. in terms of, even if you, it doesn't matter how you differentiate or how you try to vary it or how you try to incorporate them, they are just not at the level to fit in. And when you set an exam like the GSAT, how on that are those students going to be able to perform up to nationals, even the basic national standard?
But for the GSAT, if you have students like those,
they have passed the grade 4. They pass the grade 4.
but if but what I'm saying for GSAT, that is for sure. You don't wait until GSAT day to say that these students are slow. You write to student assessment unit and you tell them that you have these students and you are of the group. And then you will have to get them tested. And when you get them tested, they will provide for those children during the exam some assistance.
Try that field, trust me. But I understand, I like your presentation, I like the area that you chose. I really commend you for that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I too want to commend you for the topic you chose and the impact you want to make on your teachers. And more so, I am a supporter of principal walkthroughs. I believe that principals must do their walkthroughs, do their observation, because I realize that some instructional leaders, they wait until it's time for appraisal, and then that's when the teacher is marked down for not being punctual, for not having up-to-date lesson plans and things like those. So I must commend you, and I trust that it will be sustained and you will share this with your other colleagues.
Just to add to what you have to say, is that I make sure that at the school where I work, I tell my teachers I calculate lateness. You might not say, but Miss, I was just 2 minutes late. I multiply that by the number of students in the class and say, if you have 40 students in the class and you are 2 minutes late, you multiply that and you see how many minutes you are late. So the 2 minutes will work for. Yes, sir.
This is what I response. Yes, I answer, you know, I answer if you're a she said yes. Sorry about that response though. Under the theme of professional development, that's a very relevant and applicable topic, and I picked up that you have instituted differentiated strategies and you have diverted from the one-size-fits-all. However, in my mind, you being the head of the management of your school, with the varying instructional strategies, do you have the assessment methods to complement those strategies that you have used in your institution? In terms of formative assessment, do you have formative assessment that complements those instructional strategies?
Yes. It's really an ongoing thing because, as I mentioned before, it has become a part of the school system because we have to improve on the things that we do for that. And frankly speaking, I remember the initial state I said that when we were in staff meeting and we were grappling with the barriers for learning and so, and teachers were saying it's because of where the children come from and their socio and their educational background and so on. But I stood my ground on a number of occasions to say I do not believe that could be only factors. It has got to be something that we are doing as teachers. And I can tell you, I got a whole lot of whipping for that because teachers were of the view that I was blaming them for the shortcoming of the students. But I insist. I came from the old school and I have a thought that if the teachers teach, then the students will. They will.
Go ahead. You mentioned in the intervention phase that there are two teachers who are resistant or rebellious. How are you able to impact those teachers at the end?
Mr. Chancellor, I tell you something. When you know what you're about, I don't really force anything on persons. I just get them to by doing because of my method of presentation. I get them to see the bigger picture. And I model for teachers. I go into a class. I don't just look and walk out. But from time to time, and teachers, more and more teachers are coming to me and say, Miss, I want you to come and look at something from me and tell me what I can do.
Please, a question.
Not to backtrack, but I realize that you're a strong supporter of differentiation. And as it relates to assessment, I'm wondering how does this impact the way the students' ability to sit standardized tests? Because we have to be realistic about this, that although we are going to differentiate, we differentiate our assessment. So for students to show us that they have understood, they're going to be doing different things. That's what I gather from your presentation. However, at the end of the day, being a teacher of a class that's going to sit GNAT, that's a standardized test where they won't be able to do different things. How does this impact their ability to sit that exam?
Look at it this way. A child comes into your class not being able to, you said GNAT, so I'm the same grade.
Math.
All right. Not being able to read more than maybe at grade 2 or 3 level. In your grade 9 class, through your differentiated instruction, you are able to move that child from that grade 3 or grade 4 level, even up to grade 4 or grade 5. Then you would have done something. The fact still remains that the standardized test, but I'm hoping and I'm praying, and I see steps in that direction where standardized tests will just won't be just paper and pens.
But I don't know if I can answer this point. As I was saying to Omar a while ago, I think sometimes we misinterpret. I'm an advocate for differentiated instruction, but I think sometimes we misinterpret the whole means of differentiation. Because if we are teaching content and concepts, it is that which you differentiate, and you just don't go over the place and be differentiating. But whatever you are differentiating, yes, it should be still aligned to whatever is being taught.
What is the type of assessment that I'm talking about?
No, but the children would have had the content. They would have had the content and the concepts. So in assessing them, you are not assessing them on anything that is different. And they are not all aspects of the curriculum that can be differentiated. So it's not that you're going to get up every day and just differentiate. But if you should really do a study on it, because I must tell you that I have an interest in that for my research topic. And I have been doing a vast amount of reading. And I think sometimes we get it wrong. But if you should do some more reading on it, you will realize that it's not just to get up and differentiate everything. You have to align whatever you are differentiating to standards, to whatever is required for the ministry at the end of the day. I hope I would have clarified.
Different paths to get to a common goal.
Yes.
So at that common point, they can be assessed.
Yes.
All right, I'll take two more comments.
All right. I realized that you were looking at getting teachers to perform based on your leadership style. Did you find out at any time that teachers were getting work done as a result of Miss Foster at the head? And if so, what is there in place to keep them motivated should Miss Foster leave tomorrow?
No. I tell you something. Yes, what I did, I started the discussion, but I now have a committee in place. And this committee, the committee, they sit down and they will analyze data from examinations and stuff, and they will view classes and come up with topics that deem must be dealt with. So even in their common planning time, the VP and leadership will take over, because I really don't have common planning time. But they will come and they will make a suggestion. The teachers are having a problem with this, and they will seek some information from me. So yes, they are the teachers, especially VPs, are online. And then of course you have the grade coordinators also.
Dr. Scott, is a follow-up to that question.
Just a follow-up. I'm sorry I skipped out, but I had to. But how did you mitigate the fear of leadership? Because you're the head of the institution. Now, whatever you say, the teachers are going to say, well, she's a principal, I have to conform.
So,
I might have missed that in your presentation, but how did you mitigate that fear?
I was having that problem. I spoke with Dr. Hamilton, and she said that I should change my approach. And she suggested that I use spaces like the parking lot, the lunchroom, the corridor, and of course, I drive, and I make it my habit to go in the direction of some of the teachers that I am targeting and give them a ride, and we have discussion like that. So it wasn't really in my office before the principal all the time.
You see the dilemma though, because if all of a sudden you start to give me a ride.
No.
Which you never did before. No,
I do that
okay,
regularly.
okay.
I do that regularly. It's not all of a sudden. I do that regularly.
Next question, and enough.
To support that, Ms. Foster failed to say she was not a new principal at the school. She came up to the school system. Understand? She was at the school, from a classroom teacher to vice principal to principal. So she would have known some of the culture of the school. And my other comment was with her. You were asking about formative assessment and summative. It is said by many noted researchers that the sustained use of formative assessment has a positive impact on the result of a summative test. Because what? Because formative assessment is happening during the teaching learning process. You would readily know where your students are, what are the gaps, and then you'll be able to provide scaffolding and meeting the needs of the individual student, which would make it better for them to have a better score on a summative test.
Thank you very much for that. I'd like to take a final question from here. We are on the substantive. Please.
I just want to congratulate Ms. Foster on her achievement. In her presentation, I got the impression she's very passionate about what she is doing, and it seems to me to be not just being done for the sake of this program. So I want to really commend her on that, because I think instructional leadership is really something that is necessary more and more in the education system. I have a follow-up question though. The issue of the principal being the person who is leading the instructional leadership. I wondered how far-reaching that can be. I know it seems as if her school is a smaller school, but there are so many tiers in many schools between the principal and the teacher. And so how do we create this seamless transition from what you have done to, as you spoke about, having it permeate all the, more and more schools or across the education system?
So we think that is need for second research.
Well, we're on a time
I was just going to maybe supply an answer to Mrs. Spear.
Well, Ms. Foster, I think, has provided an admirable response in the sense that it probably requires greater research and it appears to me that it was beyond the scope of this research. But the question is a very pertinent and valid question because there are schools which are of different sizes and it is not possible for a principal in a very large institution to, on a sustainable basis, check up on every classroom, every teacher. But as she also alluded to, there are tiers, different tiers, so mechanisms have to be in place to empower middle-level management. There are heads of departments, there are senior teachers, there are grade supervisors, so there are several tiers, and it is very useful if they all speak the same language, the same language all the time. So that is perhaps one way. But Ms. Foster, thank you very much for this insightful presentation. You have left many questions swirling, I'm sure, which is one of the aims of research, to generate interest in future research. This is certainly a very important area of study, the impact of instructional leadership on performance. One question, for example, that has been left in my mind is, to what extent has this impacted student performance? You never spoke to that, but that is something that I would like to see come out in future research. Not just the impact on teacher performance, but how does it translate to this very important set of stakeholders, the students, because they are the reason why we do what we do. So that is, for example, one area that I like to see explored. So
Suggestion for future study.
all right, very well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave the final comments to Dr. Scott, but thank you again.
Well, just to say thank you, I missed a part of your presentation, but thank you so much. There's always need for this type of research. And from listening to the questions that were asked, I'm sure you whetted everybody's appetite this morning. And the debate will continue, the questions, the readings will continue. And the research. You know, and research doesn't end at the end of your master's program. That is when it should continue. But on a daily basis, you're going to encounter incidences, you're going to identify needs in your classroom, in your school that need to be researched, understood, and applied. So I challenge you, through the effort of Ms. Foster this morning, to go out and become even greater researchers. Thank you so much, Ms. Foster. We applaud her.
Audience members, could you kindly complete the evaluations? And at the top, just write the name of the presenters. There are several presenters who want to make the track in case they get mixed up somehow. Just write the name at the top. I'll collect them from you and
On the right, we have Dr. Nadine Scott, and beside her, Dr. Lorna Morris, and then to my immediate right here, the gentleman of the afternoon, Dr. Ixwell Douglas, who will share with us his thoughts in a short while and who will be introduced in a more meaningful way as we proceed with the event of this evening. As I said, this is the fourth conference that this institution has been able to put together since we started our master's program. And I believe that we have come a very far way in what we are seeing here today and what we have experienced over this weekend. As I look back at some of the topics that were researched, I am truly amazed and satisfied that we are going places. Because I see people talking about music, I see people talking about literacy skills, I see people talking about how we can use music to improve the mastery of mathematics, using interactive whiteboard, which is just very timely. I've seen our students talking about sports, how sport advertisement can be used to motivate learning. And I believe the time is so opportune when we look at what is happening. And I could go on, but when we look at what is happening in our education landscape today, it is just so timely. And I tell you, I am indeed proud to be associated with St. Mary's University. When I listen to the principals and the teachers with whom I come in contact, there's always a good word for the graduates of St. Mary's University. They tell us about innovation, they tell us about the change attitude, they tell us about the integrity, they tell us about the concern that are expressed for the learners, their students. They tell us about the change labs that they witness because of you